I'd like to welcome everyone to the Bike Maryland webinar this evening. My name is Nigel Samaru. I'm one of the board members of Bike Maryland. I have on the call with us Dan Barron, who's also a fellow board member, and Sandy Bishop, who will be our speaker this evening. Just a few words in case for those of you who are not familiar with what Bike Maryland is about. So Bike Maryland was formed in 2009. Our mission is basically to promote bicycling, increase safety, improve conditions, and provide a voice for bicyclists in Maryland. We do this through advocacy initiatives that incorporate the promotion of pro-bicycle legislation on the state and county level. And we work with state and local government agencies. It includes police departments, in terms of developing policy and awareness campaigns that protects the rights and the well-beings of bicyclists in Maryland. We also work with partnering advocacy organizations such as BikeAAA, of whom Sandy Bishop belongs to, state and local governments, universities, businesses, and communities, all in an attempt to make bicycling a safe form of transportation and a fun recreational opportunity for all. We were formed from a previous organization. For many of you who've been around for a long time, like myself, some of you may remember One Less Car, which was founded in 1999 to promote and advocate for alternative modes of transportation. So this evening, we've got Sandy Bishop, who is the speaker. Sandy started the Cycling Without Her Age program in Anne Arundel County, and she's also, as I mentioned, a part of Bicycle Advocates for Annapolis and Arundel County. They're also one of our partnering advocacy organizations who we work very closely with. So I'll turn it over to Sandy to further introduce herself. Sandy, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Nigel. Thank you all for coming out this evening and spending some time here learning about Cycling Without Age. As Nigel mentioned, I do manage the program with Cycling Without Age in Anne Arundel County, and I am a board member with BikeAAA. And today I want to tell you about Cycling Without Age and the right to wind in your hair and how you might be able to help us spread this throughout other areas of Maryland. Next slide. Can we get next slide? Thank you. All right, so what is Cycling Without Age? First of all, it is a global organization. It was not my idea. It was started in Denmark in 2012. It is worldwide. It's now in about 40 countries around the world. It was founded in Copenhagen by a gentleman who decided to take seniors that he saw sitting watching the world go by and take them out for a bike ride, and it spread rapidly and now is, like I said, in about 40 countries. About 25 states have programs, with Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Colorado actually leading the way with the most programs in those three states. Here in Maryland, we were the second program. There is one that started before us in St. Mary's County, and a third one started in Annapolis this year. As you can see, the rides can happen in a variety of settings and countries, and they're all based around the same principles of building relationships and storytelling and just getting people out for rides. Next slide. So who benefits from a program like this? Obviously, the seniors and also any adults or children with disabilities that go out for the rides definitely experience benefits from this. There was a Danish study that was released in January that showed that seniors that went out for these rides for a period of 16 to 20 weeks, their quality of life and happiness scores went from below the national average, this is in Denmark, to above the national average, which was saying something, considering Denmark is like number 2 or 3 in the happiness score for the countries in the world. And it does make a difference when we give rides to the seniors that we spend time with. We hear from them that it makes a difference in their day, and that change in attitude lasts long after the ride is over. I'm sure many of you are cyclists, and you know that good feeling you get from being out on the bicycle carries on into the rest of your day afterwards. And we see the same thing with our passengers when they go out. One of the interesting reports that we got back from an activities director, we took some of her residents for a ride. And this happened to be the one ride where we had a flat tire that spilled the passenger almost into a bush. First time we've ever had these individual folks come out with us from this facility. And I checked in with the activities director. I said, "Is everybody okay?" She said, "Oh, yeah." The residents got back to the center and said, "We had a blast." And everybody else was like, well, gosh, I wish we had signed up to go. So, I mean, even incidents don't seem to dissuade them from wanting to go out again. So they have a great time. Caregivers also benefit from this. Sometimes we have caregivers who ride along. They get to spend time just being a friend instead of a caregiver with the folks that they work with. It gives caregivers who spend time, say, taking care of their parents at home, a break. Um, it gives folks a chance to see these individuals and doing something different than they normally do, and in a setting where they don't need care, they just need somebody to talk to. And it's really an enjoyable time for all. And the volunteers have a grand time. They like the excuse to get out and be outdoors. Um, there's always smiles. They enjoy what they're doing, and they want to come back. Next slide. This is the one that I really want to kind of make a point of stressing tonight, and that's bike groups benefit. What we have found, at least with our program, is up to 2/3 of the volunteers who pedal the bikes are not active cyclists. My most active volunteer does not own a bicycle herself. The only time she goes out for rides is when she's doing this. And I have, and the picture on would be, I guess, on your left. I have the couple in the back. They're part of the Severna Park Peloton, active cyclists. I have retired racers. I have teenagers who are on mountain bike school teams, and then I have retirees and individuals who don't own a bike and they love to go out. And what we find is the non-cyclists become aware of bikes on the road, bikes crossing the road, bike safety, um, and just looking around and noticing infrastructure and where it is and where it isn't. And they never would have noticed that were they not participating in our program. So it is a way to reach more of the community about the importance of bike infrastructure, bike safety, bike awareness. And that's an avenue that I think is overlooked when we talk about bringing a program like this into communities. Is it just benefits our advocacy efforts in a lot of ways that you wouldn't really think about. Next slide. This is my non-cycling super cyclist, and the first time she went out, she sent me this picture and the text at the top that just said, "Finished my first ride and it was epic. Thank you for the opportunity." And she couldn't wait to go out with more rides. And in fact, she ended up doing over 40 rides this year. By far the most active cyclist in the group. Another cyclist who joined this year, after her first ride, she was the same way. She's like, "This is great." And the passengers kept thanking me. And she said they didn't realize that I was the one that was thankful. I had a grand time as well. So that is a very common reaction to participating in the program. Next slide. Communities benefit. I think the League of American Bicyclists has, bike-friendly communities. AARP likes to, they have their own version of being able to recognize communities that are livable. Cycling Without Age is a way for communities to show that they are livable, that they're connected, that they're walkable, they're bikeable, and they're age friendly. And this program kind of ties all of those elements together and highlights the features that a community might have that they could sell to others and say, "Hey, you should live here because look at what we have." And it's a wonderful way to do that. Next slide. So what does it take to start up Cycling Without Age? First thing to do is become an affiliate. And all of that is a very simple form that you fill out for the global office at cyclingwithoutage.org. And all you're doing at that point is saying you're interested in trying to become a chapter, that you agree to abide by those 5 principles, and it allows you to tap into the worldwide online community of other Cycling Without Age chapters, access to the brand book with all of the information you need about how to maintain the look and promotion and merchandising and the general feel for the program that they want to keep standardized across the different elements. How you implement the program is can be quite varied and specific to your location. Then you getting into the nuts and bolts, which is you need a bike. We call them trishaws. That's your most expensive and significant element. It requires fundraising, which then leads into, the need to have nonprofit status or a way to be able to do the fundraising. Um, Once the bikes are purchased, your ongoing operating costs really are just insurance and maintenance. Um, your pilots are easy to get. I've never had a problem getting those. You can find those in your bike clubs. I put out a notice in my local social media and the community, and I have more volunteers than I have rides going out. And students as well are looking for service hours, and they make great pilots. Um, your passengers, we started with care homes, assisted living facilities. It's the easiest place because we know that the residents are there and there's staff that we can work with to do the scheduling and things like that. We have tried to find ways to connect with seniors who are aging in place. They tend to be much more isolated than those that are in assisted living facilities, but we found that to be a very difficult thing to do. And it's not unique to us. I found out actually that when I was at the International Summit in Copenhagen in June, that even in Europe, the chapters over there find that it's very difficult to connect with those individuals. And then also disabled individuals, veterans, people with developmental disabilities, those are all individuals that can also be our passengers. And we just recently have made some connections locally here in Anne Arundel County with 3 different service agencies that work primarily with adults with developmental disabilities, Bella McRae, Providence, and Opportunity Builders. And we hope to build on those relationships and do more rides for them. And then a place to ride. Of course, you need some place that's very safe. You're going to do very slow rides. You want it to be an enjoyable place, and it has to be someplace that's easy to access for these individuals with mobility issues anyway. And then a scheduling system to make sure your pilots and passengers know when they're going for rides, where, when, and how. Scheduling systems can be as complicated or simple as you like, and there are some free and low cost options out there, and those can be specific to the situation that you decide to have in your particular chapter. Next slide. The way that the program can be run varies from place to place. In Anne Arundel County, we actually have 2 chapters, Ginger Cove Retirement Community in Annapolis. We did rides for them on a part-time basis last year. They enjoyed it and decided to purchase their own bike. So they own a bike, and then the bike is utilized for their residents on their property. The Anne Arundel program, all the bike and equipment is owned by BikeAAA. We pay for all the operating costs. We do all of the oversight of the program, but we partner with Sunrise Senior Living in Severna Park. They provide us with a place to store our equipment, to store and charge our batteries, which is a big deal. The bikes are electric assist, so we need some climate controlled storage for charging. Assisted living facilities are great because they're open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So we have easy access to those batteries whenever we need. And the way that the partnership works is they provide us a place to store the equipment. We take their residents for rides whenever they want to go. We pick them up at the front door. Very convenient for them, but we also have no restrictions on giving rides to anybody in the community. Assisted living facilities come to us because we have 3 bikes now. We can take 6 passengers at a time, and we've had assisted living facilities from Crofton and other locations bring a busload of residents over, and then we ride from the Sunrise location and Woods Church across B&A over to the bike trail, the B&A Boulevard, then we ride up and down the B&A bike trail. Next slide. Oh, go back to the previous slide. The advantage to what this situation with a single site is, we have the residents, the passengers, the bikes co-located near where the rides are going to happen. And logistically, that makes it much simpler for the volunteers because they show up at the ride location where the equipment is and where they're picking up their passengers. So there is very little downtime or wasted time for them, getting the equipment to the passengers or passengers to the equipment, et cetera. And it works extremely well. And we've kind of centralized our operation primarily to do most of our rides right at sunrise. Next slide. A different model is to keep all of the bikes in a trailer and to trailer to either the ride location and have your passengers meet you there, or to where the passengers are located. These pictures are actually out of Wisconsin. This particular chapter trailers to all of their rides. They love doing it this way. They go to a different location every day of the week. Sometimes they'll do 2 locations in a day. They've got agreements with local dealerships to borrow trucks to tow their trailers. It works fabulous for them. I talked to the manager of this program last month, and he expected to probably complete about 2,000 rides this season using this model. When we were trailering to a few locations for our program, it didn't work well because I have a very small number of people who are comfortable towing a trailer, and the amount of time that it takes to load, unload, and do trailering just took up too much of the volunteer time. And a friend that I met from Australia said, people volunteer to ride bikes, not tow trailers. And I have to agree with her. My volunteers really would much rather spend their time giving rides than pulling a trailer around. But a model like this can work in the right circumstance with the right set of volunteers. Next slide. A third option that works really well in some places, and I've met people from both of these locations when I was in Denmark, is to have the bikes located at a really beautiful, popular scenic location and have multiple bikes so you can do these group rides and have the people come to you. In Scotland, this is, I believe, a national park with these called the Helix, these horse sculptures, and there's trails around the park. And there's a national Cycling Without Age office in Scotland, and I think they were able to get funding, and they got the government involved, and they have a building right there at the park that they base their operations out of at this particular location. The Australia site, they also were able to get storage facility right there by the ocean at a community center, and they do rides oceanfront. Fabulous if you got it. We don't have quite that kind of setup, but it is a way to do it. And, like I said, each chapter uses the conditions and opportunities that are available to them, and you can set up the program in whatever model works best for you. Next slide. So what does it cost to start up one of these? The bike. The trishaws run $15,000. Insurance runs right now for our program about $900 annually, and we get it through the Silent Sports insurance company. Some of you may know that they do other bike type events. They have a specific Cycling Without Age policy available. They know about us. They insure other chapters around the country, and the costs are pretty reasonable. A lot of chapters, ours included, we budget about $200 annually for our maintenance on our trishaws. They're new, so generally we don't expect it to go over that. And we do have some volunteers who do the basic everyday kind of maintenance and things like that. If you decide you're going to use a trailer, of course, you would have those additional costs as well. Next, trishaws. So what do you get for $15,000? These are the 2 main types of trishaws that most chapters around the world use. The one on the left is a trio bike. They are a Danish bike. Currently, the newest models have come out with a Bosch motor battery system and Gates carbon belt drives. They are a mid-drive bike. The bike on the right is from Van Ram. It is a Dutch manufacturer, and Van Ram specializes in bikes for individuals with disabilities. Both bikes have their advantages and disadvantages. We currently own two trio bikes and one chat with another chat on order. So we have both kinds available if people want to come see them firsthand. I personally like the trio bike better. Most of my pilots and passengers like the chat better. It's personal preference. Next. New this year is Cycling Without Age, the movie. I was just in Easton last night for a showing of this, and I've done 4 screenings in Anne Arundel County of the movie. It was filmed and produced in Santa Barbara by the chapter out there, and the premiere was at the International CWA Summit back in June. I got to see it there. It is available for free to anyone who wants to use it to grow Cycling Without Age, to use it as a fundraiser. It's 30 minutes and it introduces you to 3 or 4 different groups of people as passengers, a couple different pilots, and the difference that it makes for both passengers and pilots at that particular program. And John Siegel Baitner, who's the man who started the Santa Barbara chapter, lifetime cyclist, and his sons are the ones who produced and filmed this, and a family of cyclists. In the movie, he even has pictures of bringing his sons home from the hospital in a bike trailer. I mean, from their film production company is Pedal Born Pictures. So they are big time cyclists and avid supporters now of Cycling Without Age. Next. So we have individuals around the state who are at some level of interest in trying to start this in more locations. If you are in any of these areas and are interested in being involved, I know these people would love to have some other people involved in growing the support for chapters. I know Catherine in Baltimore County is up in the northern part. She's been trying to find some places up there. Juan in Columbia would really like someone. He's been trying for a while, and he could use some help, and possibly someone who could kind of take the lead on that, who has a little bit more time. Heather Grant in Easton, I was there last night, and I think she's got some good leads there. Chesterton and Owen Bailey, definitely he would be interested. Friend's house in Sandy Spring, and also along with that is Eric Brenner, who's here tonight as well in Montgomery County in DC, interested in trying to get something going in that area. And then Shane and I have talked about possibly doing something like this in Frederick, which is what spurred the whole idea of doing a webinar through Bike Maryland to kind of spread the word everywhere. So again, if you're interested and you're in any of those areas, contact them. If you're in a different area and you're interested, contact me. Last slide. You can email me directly at cwa@bikeAAA.org. I will get that. I just threw this picture in for fun. Europe takes Cycling Without Age to a whole new level. They do multi-day trips between countries with senior citizens and sag wagons and the whole thing. They've done this trip in 2014 between Denmark and Germany. They did another one between Denmark and Norway and filmed it. If you go to the Bike AAA website, our CWA page, there's a link to I think it's, I forgot the name of it, The Gray Adventure or something like that. And they did a documentary about it, and it's a riot. It's a lot of fun. So any questions, I am here to answer those, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Sandy. We actually do have a few questions in the chat. So the first question comes from Shane Boucher, who's a fellow advocate out in Frederick, as you saw, he's mentioned on the slide. How are you transporting the trishaws from one site to other sites?
We purchased this year a 6x12 enclosed trailer similar to the one in the picture. We can carry two of our three bikes in the trailer. We have cut down on the amount of trailering that we do, and whenever possible, we'll just ride the bikes to the other facilities in Severna Park. But we can trailer them if needed, and it is doable.
Great. Thank you, Sandy. Comment
Mhm.
from John Corrin, who's the chair of Bike AAA. Sandy has done an amazing job launching and growing this wonderful program. She's a great resource for others interested in launching a program in Maryland. Question from Eric Brenner. When a van full of folks show up, but you only have one bike or two, how do you handle that? Also, can you talk a bit about the mix of riders? Do some folks want to go out as often as possible, or do you get a nice mix of new riders?
Um, so first of all, the way that our scheduling system works is we have people schedule the ride, so we don't have people waiting. Um, they schedule a ride, we have a set time and a meeting place, we pick them up and we go for a ride. Rides generally are about an hour from pickup to drop off on the trail. If we are invited to go to another facility, such as we've been to Brightview on Jumpers Hole Road, or we've been to Spring Arbor on Ritchie Highway, we'll ride a bike over there and we will take their residents, usually their memory care, for a ride around campus. And then those are 10-minute, 15-minute rides just around the building, which is enough for them. They're happy with that. Um, that was a motivation for trying to grow our fleet to be able to group rides, because that was always a concern. If I invited a group to come, what do I do with the people who aren't on the bike? Because um, that's not what they're there for. And so we were able to rapidly go from one to three bikes, and that has allowed us to invite groups to come of six or less. But when we talked about trying to do that the first year and having a group come, and then we would have to have a bus sitting there with extra, I leave that to the activity directors who are bringing those individuals, what they're going to do with the people who are not on the bike. And ended up weather prevented us from actually being able to pull that off. So we never had to deal with that directly. Mix of rides. Um, at Sunrise, we definitely have individuals who like to go frequently and go regularly. We have there's a turnover in who lives at Sunrise. And so every year, we're getting new people coming and trying it. Some of that, whether or not we're getting new people or we're getting repeat rides, depends on the ability of the individual to let staff know they want to go again and get on the calendar. That's something that we're working on, and a focus for next year is how to improve connecting with the residents who want to go for rides and making sure that they're getting scheduled, because like I think most care facilities, staff has a lot to do, and remembering to ask pet residents if they want to go for a bike ride is not high on their list of things. So we're missing opportunities to take people for rides that we really do want to go. You have a question?
Thanks. Another question, actually two questions from Shane. What's your roughly yearly operating cost? Is it around 1 to 2,000? And second question is, how do you how do you find your volunteer riders?
The budget part of it is, let me try and remember, with insurance and everything. Yeah, we're under $2,000 operating costs per year right now for operating costs, because we just are finishing our second year. And the first year we had the first bike purchase, the second year we had two more bikes plus the trailer and all of those extra expenses. We haven't settled down to a real stable amount, but ballpark operating costs are under $2,000 with insurance and maintenance costs. Finding the volunteer pilots has been as simple as Bike AAA sending out an email to all of the people that were connected on their email list and saying, we have this new program, come to a webinar. And I polled, I think, 24 people the first time I did a webinar the first year, and then putting something out on Facebook, in the local Severna Park chat, areas, groups, and picking up people who had seen the bike on the trail. So far, finding the volunteers has been pretty simple. Um, and the more we're out there and the bikes are on the trail, people see them and then they see us at events and then they ask about it. And we slowly are picking up people even from the community.
Fantastic. Next question comes from Dennis Sykes, who's one of our board members at Bike Maryland. Welcome, Dennis. Dennis asks, do you offer rides 7 days a week, or are there scheduled days that you do this? And also,
Our
I'll toss in
Mhm.
on top of that, I presume, is there like a temperature range limit? I mean, I imagine if it's snowing, icy, rain, you're not riding, but what about temperatures
Yeah.
and so on? How about that?
All right. Scheduling, we will do rides whenever passengers want to go and pilots are interested in giving rides. The particular ride scheduling system that we are using is the one that was developed in Denmark. It was free, and we thought let's try it. And I was kind of sold on the idea by the developer because the way that the system works is it doesn't require a centralized scheduler. Individuals schedule themselves. So the staff can put ride requests up on a calendar and a notification will go out to all of the volunteers registered at that location. And it's kind of like Uber, the first person available who can do that ride grabs the ride and they're the pilot. It can also work the other way where the volunteers say, hey, the weather's going to be nice on Wednesday. I don't have to work. I'll see if anybody wants to go for a ride. And they'll throw an offer of ride up and staff can put passengers on that ride. We now have one centralized scheduler for community rides, what we call community rides. Those are individuals who are not in care facilities. And that's where some of these individuals from the centers for adults with disabilities will email our book a ride uh, email address, and that goes to my scheduler, and then he'll work out the details with them, set it up on the calendar, and it goes out. So that's how we do it. Other places say, it's Tuesday, we're at Sunrise. It's Wednesday, we're at Spring Arbor, and they have set days and hours for doing that. Weather is a factor there too. When I do my trainings for the pilots, it is up to them to look at the weather and cancel the ride if need be. This summer in particular, we've put a policy in place. If the heat index exceeded 90 degrees, we said no rides. Um, that's a work in progress as well because the care facilities tend to have the open activity time in the afternoon. And so they're like wanting to schedule rides at 2 in the afternoon in July. And we said, no, we're not doing it. Um, I have a friend who does rides in Pueblo, Colorado. Uh, they've got it worked out. June, July, and August, they do rides at 10 a.m. In the spring and the fall, they do rides at 2 in the afternoon. They've figured out they've got to go early and in the hot months.
Yeah.
And I've got to train my assisted living facilities here that they need to rework their schedule for those outdoor activities during July and August if we want to get out there. Cold weather, I had a request. There's a request that came in from Bella McRae for a ride now with the cold weather. And my schedule was like, are we doing rides? I said, if they want to go, we have warm insulated blankets that came from Denmark that are utilized there. If they want to go out on a cold weather and a pilot wants to go, I have no problem with that. And we have enough mild days through the winter that as long as there's no salt on the roads, I'm fine with the bikes going out there. They're there to be used.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
Sandy.
Nigel, it's Eric. Can I butt in with a quick
Oh, but
follow-up?
of course, of
Yes,
course.
Sandy, if you can talk some more about your scheduler. You said you have a scheduler. How much time does he or she put in? What's it really look like? I'm coming from the standpoint of doing walks with senior groups where everyone shows up at a set time. If the weather's bad, they don't come. It's really an easy part of this. This feels like such an important part to get right. If you can just talk a little bit more about your person and
Yeah.
what they do, what the time looks like.
So my scheduler is a volunteer who wanted to be a pilot and didn't have the ability to ride an upright bike. So this was a role that we could find for him that he could be involved, and he's happy to do it. We have not had much success in getting people to utilize the community rides. So he's done very little. He's disappointed at how little time he has spent on this. I do know that out in Littleton, Colorado, they have a centralized scheduler, and that is her job. And she is the main point of contact for every person who wants to go for a ride. And the manager out there said, my scheduler is phenomenal. She is the face of the program, and she's great. And I think that's wonderful. My fear is systems like that have a single point of failure. If you don't have a good backup plan and you lose that key person, it can cause other kinds of ripple effects that affect your program. So I've designed our system to minimize single point of failure whenever possible, but you can't get around the fact that the way the system's currently designed, there has to be a coordinator that schedules. That said, Denmark is in conversation and development with a software development company. There's a gentleman who volunteers for Cycling Without Age, owns a software development company, and is working on a new modular version of this scheduling system that we're using that can be customized far more than the current free version that we're using. No word yet on what that might cost, when it'll be out. The beta version was supposed to be released in Denmark this fall, and I haven't heard anything, and we volunteered to be a beta site when they are ready to expand. So some places use Google Calendar and spreadsheets. So there are other ways to do it. And you just kind of have to work out what works best for your situation.
Great. Question, Sandy. Do you have any recommendations for people who are interested in either volunteering to pilot with your chapter or starting a new chapter which you haven't already covered?
If you want to volunteer with us, you can email me at cwa@bikeaaa.org. Right now, rides are very limited. So most likely the new volunteers really won't start until next spring. The way we handle volunteers is I will do a group training, which is a classroom training going over policies and procedures and paperwork. That usually takes about an hour for new volunteers. And then each individual volunteer gets time on the trishaws, learning the equipment, trying it out, learning the route. I've been doing 95% of that training in Severna Park. Returning pilots, we meet briefly once a year, again in the spring, to sign the waivers, their annual waiver forms, to go over any changes in policy, any changes in what's going on with the program, any updates, and just to see each other to get the season started, because it's a very distributed system, and sometimes I train my pilots and then I don't see them again for months. It's all by email and things like that. What was the rest of the question? I think there was more.
I think or starting a new chapter, any points to that you haven't already covered? I mean, I think I would guess that one of the things I was going to ask you about are the costs of the trishaws. And those, I imagine they're not cheap, and you have to come up with funds to be able to purchase those trishaws. So I would imagine that that's one of the hurdles to starting a new program somewhere in a community. So any thoughts on?
For starting a program, definitely, if you're even just thinking about it, is go ahead and become an affiliate. There are a lot of places that are affiliates that end up never getting off the ground because there is a hurdle to get over with the funding. But become an affiliate, start talking to talking to me, you can reach out to, what I did was I reached out to other chapters in the US that looked like what I thought my chapter might look like, that were in locations that resembled where I might be doing my rides. Um, if you go to bikefed.org, which is the Wisconsin state level bike advocacy group, they got a large amount of grant money that they dedicated to creating a very detailed website with step-by-step instructions on how to start a chapter, and templates for forms, and suggestions on how to do fundraising and publicity and things like that. Great resource. They're great people. I made the trip to Wisconsin first year. They were doing a train the trainer event, first time they'd ever done one. I'm like, I'm training people and I don't know what I'm doing. So I made the trip up there and they've been extremely helpful. I have had tremendous success. Every manager, program coordinator that I've reached out to across the country has been willing to share ideas, information, advice. And that goes for even the international ones, Australia, Canada. Canada has a national office that they're a great help, and their forms are similar. Scotland, Germany, they're all really great, and they all speak English.
Sandy, if you can provide the link for that site that you mentioned,
The Bike Fed,
yeah.
I don't have it at my fingertips,
Oh,
but
is it the Wisconsin Bike Fed?
with Wisconsin Bike Fed, probably.
Okay, Mark, thank you, Mark, for sharing that in the chat.
Thank you.
Linda Penn has a question. No need to apologize, Linda. Linda's question is there a program like this on the NCR Trail?
No, the Catherine Witt is up there in Baltimore County, and she's trying to find the right combination of passengers, facilities interested in being part of this. She's talked about the trail. The issue with the trail is where to put the bikes, where to store them. My understanding is that the NCR Trail is, some of it's paved, some of it's hardpack. These trishaws will work on hardpack. We did a group ride in Denmark at the summit through a natural area. Much of it was just hardpack, and the trishaws managed it fine. The trishaws do have limitations in terms of being able to do hills. They're not great on hills. They can be utilized if you're careful about the grade. I know there's chapters out west in the Canadian Rockies and Colorado and stuff, but you have to be pretty selective about where you ride and how. And some of the bikes are better on hills than others. But that's how that works.
Someone who's ridden the NCR Trail a few times, or more than a few times, and for those of you who are familiar with the NCR Trail, you can imagine that the type of surface that it is not the easiest to ride a trishaw. You've all seen the size of that of the trishaws. They're large, and when you've got passengers on those trishaws as well, and you've got to have a fairly strong cyclist. Shane, I know you're one of the pilots, a volunteer pilot, if I'm correct. I know Shane is a very strong rider. He rides one of those penny farthings, and participates in those races. But I think that's one of the potential hurdles with a surface like the NCR Trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the bikes, just for those who haven't seen them, they are large, roughly 3 feet wide, and about 8 feet long. They are substantial, heavy. The trio bike, the Danish one with the kind of wood box, is much lighter than the Dutch one. But they're substantial bikes, and they are a lot to move, which is why they are electric assist. But on a flat surface, like I said, my non-cyclists manage them just fine, and they seem intimidated a little bit the first time they see the bike, and they're like, I don't think I can do this. And they get on it and realize, oh, it's really a lot easier to ride than they ever expected. So it's a small hurdle for those who are not regular cyclists to master the trishaws. They're really comfortable and easy to ride bikes.
Thank you, Sandy. Linda commented, and I think, Linda, probably the best thing to do would be to send an email to Sandy Bishop at the email that she provided at the end of the presentation. But Sandy, Linda said that she has a friend from Denmark who lives here, but also has a home in Denmark if you need any contacts there. So I think
Appreciate it.
probably that would be the best way to approach that, I would think, Sandy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions?
Yeah,
We have 10 minutes. So Eric, go ahead.
yeah, I just can't resist the chance. Sandy's been very generous with her time, you know, calls and emails. Just for the rest of the group, for Shane and you know, Dennis, everyone else who's on here. Montgomery County and DC both are very interested in this. I've just started this. This goes back maybe 6 to 8 weeks, but for very different reasons. And it's in Montgomery County. It made big investments on disability access to parks, and very, very interested on that aspect of saying, look, we've got these sunk costs out there. The more citizens we get, the better we're serving them. The DC thing is very different in that, you know, a lot of very contentious bike issues where it feels like the bikers are duking it out, the anti-bikers, and the thought being, we've got some spectacular trails, and Rock Creek Park has been closed to car traffic. And before just picking the next fight, let's at least get more people out on some of the things we've done. All the good reasons. It doesn't take any convincing, but it's just been very interesting to work with each, where the DC folks really want to show off the best trails possible. The motivations are very different. So my conversations have been short, but they're really progressing nicely. So, you know, again, if Shane and Frederick or wherever other people are trying to do this, I'd love to talk, because having multiple bikes available at the same time feels like a really good thing to have, and yet they're a lot of money. So one bike and two people, it's better than no bikes and no people. But the possibility of having 3, 4, 5 bikes at a spot, it'll look good, and it gets more people from a facility out there. So yeah, appreciate your mentioning my name, letting me out there. Again, this is pretty early, but it feels like both these things are kind of moving along in a good way.
For those of you, Samantha, I'll get to you in a sec. For those of you who don't know Eric is the past chair of the Maryland Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. If you're not familiar with it, it's a committee of appointees by the governor that weighs in on a statewide level in terms of bicycle and pedestrian issues here in the state of Maryland. I happen to also be a member of that particular committee, and Eric has been a longtime advocate, and much appreciate your work, Eric. Let me get to Linda, and then I'm going to get to Samantha. Linda has
I have a real quick comment about Eric's comment. Follow up with Eric saying getting multiple bikes in one location. My dream is we get multiple chapters going in Maryland, and then we all show up at the DC bike ride with all the trishaws.
Awesome, Sandy. So Linda asks, any chance of taking people through Blackwater Wildlife Refuge? And then I'll get to you, Samantha.
If somebody wants to start a chapter over there.
Yeah, Linda, you know, as you can see, these are really large trishaws, so transporting them is an issue. So that's one of the hurdles to try and overcome.
Right, it is. And again, if we can if we get the momentum, we do have multiple chapters running in Maryland. It's not out of the question to have a group event where we all show up with our various trishaws at something like that. Scotland did a national event and had 40 trishaws show up at one location and did a group ride. So, I mean, certainly down the road, it would be fun to do something like that, where every chapter brings 1 or 2 bikes over and we do a group ride. It'd be great.
Thank you, Sandy. Samantha, you'll have to unmute. There you go.
Thanks. And I want to thank Sandy. We got to speak last year or so at one point when you're just getting started. This is great to see. I did have a follow-up question, just a little bit more nitpicky. I had been looking at the liability and like um, waivers, and one of in through the CWA uh, FAQs, and that pointed me to some stuff from Wisconsin, which included a description of the pilot signing waivers that said that they were using their own personal liability. And I know from like some people just sign waivers, but we also get people who read the waivers
Read.
and then start arguing with us, right?
Yep.
Uh, so I'm just curious, does that mean if something happens like to one of the passengers, is their insurance responsible, or what's the nuance there?
Good question. I haven't dug that deep. I'm one of those people who signs waivers. The insurance company said the waivers were fine, and I'm like, okay, works for me. So I haven't dug that deep.
Okay.
I'm kind of I hope everything goes all right. I haven't gone into it, and it's a reasonable question, and I should know the answer, and I don't.
Well, and I think the other answer is you're going really slow, right? Like
Yeah,
it's more like pushing a stroller than
exactly.
riding a
It
bike.
is. And I mean, when we did have the one incident, literally we were having issues with spokes breaking. That's a whole nother story. But we had one of the trishaws, one of the new ones, went flat, and it was a rapid flat. It went down, and it was the right side along the edge of the trail, and it pulled the bike off the trail, and it tipped. But we're going 8 miles an hour, and it tipped, and everybody's got seatbelts on, and she didn't fall out. And it was, we caught it. So granted, things can happen for sure. We have to cross Robinson Road. And I know that people have been hit there. We always ride our bikes with the canopies up, which are these huge red big covers. Makes it hard to talk to the passengers, makes it real easy for the cars to see us. And we have all the pilots have said whenever they're at a road crossing, the cars stop before they're anywhere close to the road. They see the bikes coming, and we're familiar now. And so knock on wood, people are really aware of what we're doing and courteous, and the bikes do go slow. I mean, slowness is a principle for a lot of reasons, one of which is it's just safer and it's more enjoyable. So we're topping out at 10 miles an hour when we're going fast downhill.
Right. That actually brings up another safety question. So I'm actually in a different state, but I used to live in Maryland a long time ago. So, and I was a
Welcome.
member of One Less Car. I still have the t-shirt. Love that
Oh,
t-shirt.
wow.
Yeah. Um, uh, but I'm curious about helmets. So I saw very few few of the pilots were wearing helmets and none of the passengers. Obviously, again, you're going slow. Is there, and I don't know if that's an issue in other states, or basically your standard is not helmets are not expected.
Helmets are not expected.
Okay.
So that goes back and forth, different people. The cyclists, I have cyclists who don't feel that they are dressed for riding without their helmet, and they'll wear the helmet going 8 miles an hour, and that's fine. The passengers, Sunrise purchased helmets. Passengers never ask for one. They're available if they want them. They don't wear them. Part of it is because of where we ride. We cross 3 roads total, and we're on the trail, and we go slow, and it's people are more approachable and more noticeable and more recognizable without them, and it feels like we're out for a stroll, but moving faster and easier than. And so some places, Australia, they're required to wear helmets. They wear them. Other places, optional. Most of the chapters that I'm aware of in the US, you will see some pilots wear them. You almost never see the passengers wear them. Europe is a whole nother story. The countries where the cycling is much more comfortable and the infrastructure is there, It's now, you rarely see them as well. So for us, we've always made it an optional thing. If we were riding on roads with cars more frequently, I would probably revisit that. But on the other hand, if I felt like we were going to get hit by a car, we wouldn't be operating the bikes. So it's it's a tough one, how to respond to that, because for the passengers' heads to hit the ground, that's going to take a lot for that bike to go that far over. It's not like it just tips over. So it's a personal thing, and I've tried to make the rides approachable, comfortable, and address safety in other ways.
I think one of our challenges is that it's a state agency that is primarily interested in it in our state, and another state agency that I collaborate with that would be supporting. And so they may need to require that.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
yeah, and policies and procedures for each location are specific to that. Whatever the participants feel is necessary is what you go with.
Thank you so
we,
much.
no
This
problem.
is
I
great.
mean, we,
Thanks, Samantha, for your question.
Yeah.
A couple comments. So we have Samantha, there's a comment from Eric in the chat if you want to look at that. I'll read it for the rest of the folks. It says, if Montgomery Parks were to host or sponsor a trishaw on a program, one of the advantages is that we'd fall under their liability coverage. In DC right now, it looks like it would be a nonprofit sponsoring, and thus we'd hit the issues that you mentioned, Samantha. A couple of questions. Do you have stops whereby riders leave the trishaw, something like a coffee or bathroom break? And another question is it's a comment from Mark Wilkerson, who just had to leave the chat. He said he's located in Fitchburg, Wisconsin, and actively fundraising. Contact me and he gives his email address if anyone wants to collaborate. So go ahead, Sandy, if you want to answer the question about having stops where riders leave.
Right. So if you see the pictures, some of the videos and things like that in Europe, stops are a regular thing. They go to coffee shops, they go to get an ice cream, they have a glass of wine. I'm like, I want to do my rides over there. We ride on the B&A Trail. We're right next to Big Bean. People are out there at the tables having coffee. My dream was that we would do that too. It's not, we can't. There's no way to get the participants, the passengers, orders and then get them to drink. And the policies and procedures that the facilities we work with ask of us is once the passengers are on the bike, they don't get off the bike. So we do not do stops as much as I would like to. It's part of relationship building and storytelling and spending time in each other's company that happens over food and drink. That would be lovely to do. We can't do that with the setup that we have as much as I would like to.
Sandy, Linda asks a question. I think I know the answer to this one. I think it'll depend on the size, Linda. So Linda Pan wants to know if the trishaw can fit in a pickup truck.
I think there are some people that have done that. I know there's some that have been able to get them in some small cargo vans. One, but I think it's a Canadian or other kind of model that got it into the back of a minivan. But these are really, really heavy bikes. So getting them up into the bed of a truck or something like that is not easy. But yeah, it would depend on the particular bike model and the size of the truck that you're working with.
Fantastic. Well, folks, it's we're a few minutes after 8. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on this webinar this evening on behalf of Bike Maryland, BikeAAA, and Sandy. Much appreciate all the questions that you asked. If you have any questions, please reach out to Sandy. Sandy, if you want to grab that information out of the chat that Mark Wilkerson offered, or anyone else for that matter, please do so before we end up ending the webinar.
Okay.
We will have future webinars, so please, we'll send out a notice from Bike Maryland. So I don't know if we'll have another one, Dan, for this month, probably not until next year, January. Right, Dan?
That's correct. Yeah, we'll be taking a break for the holiday and New Year
holidays.
and be resuming in 2025.
But these are recorded and posted, correct? Nigel
Yes,
and
they
Dan?
are, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
No, absolutely. I was going to make that. We'll make the recording available on our website. And there are other webinars that have also been recorded. And if you're interested in wanting to see those, they're also on our website. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I put my
so-
emails back in the chat. Somebody asked. And if you need to get a hold of any of the people that were in that slide in the different parts of the state, let me know. I can get you and put you in touch with them as well.
Wishing everyone a safe and wonderful holidays. And we'll see you on the next webinar, hopefully. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you
Take
all.
care.